Hello, it's Regina. Welcome back to my haunted library. Today I have a bit of a haul. This is kind of some things I've picked up when I've gone to thrift stores or to a really cool bookstore that I discovered in New Jersey, which I'll talk about in a bit. So it's kind of a mixed bag of different things. So let's just get started. I will do close-ups of all of these because I know you guys love to see the covers. Okay, so I said before in my last wrap-up video that I've been kind of getting into UFOs again and aliens. So I couldn't resist picking up Cosmic Voyage. This is by Courtney Brown, PhD. So I expect this to be heavily researched. A scientific discovery of extraterrestrials visiting Earth. Okay, that's a new concept. No, just kidding. So this I got in my little library in my town. It was free, so what the heck. I'm going to add it to my UFO shelf with my little alien guy. I don't know if you can see, but his eyes light up. And speaking of aliens, I was thrilled to find a copy of Communion, True Story by Whitley Strieber. And I already started reading it. This is a nice first edition copy that I got on eBay, and it came with the sequel, which is called Transformation, The Breakthrough. And I will be reading both of these very soon. I got a little sidetracked because I'm doing books of my father for the month of August, so I put this on hold, but I will probably start over again with Communion because I just read a few chapters, and I don't really like to break. I like to just keep reading it, so I'll restart it. But this I got from a really good bookseller on eBay. I love when I get like the good sellers who really know how to wrap the book nicely, and they weren't expensive. So this is going on my alien shelf, and I will read both of them soon. I've heard of those books, of course. I just never read them. So if you have read them, let me know. Okay, this is a book I picked up because from Amazon because of the praise that Jason from Jason's Weird Reads gave it, and I read the blurb and I said, okay, this sounds right up my alley. And this is a horror book, kind of new, called Experimental Film by Gemma Files. It looks really good, and I want to read more newer horror fiction, and I love discovering women horror writers. So he did a nice like Women of Horror Fiction video, which I will link below. Jason always helps me spend money on Amazon. I'm not complaining, but you know, it's an occupational hazard. All right, what else? I found a nice copy of Sacrament by Clive Barker at the thrift store. Look at that picture on the back. He's so cute. This looks very good. I just wish I had time to read all these books, as soon as I get them, but I will have to wait on this. I'm always happy to add a Barker to my shelf, and I haven't read this one. It looks fascinating, as everything that he writes does, so I look forward to getting to that. I was on like a whole Barker kick last year, and I just kind of, let it go. I need to get back on that train. The midnight meat train. I need to get back on it. All right, so I went to this, I also got this. All right, well, my weirdness is showing here, but I found this at the thrift store too. The Beautiful People's Diet book by Luciana Avedin and somebody. I love these 1970s like self-help books. I don't know why. I mean, they're so dated and the advice is really bad, but I was looking over the diet and it does recommend a glass of cold Chablis at every meal. So this might just be the right diet for me. So I might check it out, but I did pick this up for like $1. Okay, so now I went to I discovered this really, really great bookstore. And if you're anywhere near South Jersey, you might want to check it out, especially if you are a fan of fantasy, because it had the biggest collection of fantasy, like used book fantasy that I've seen in my life. For like a small used bookstore, secondhand bookstore, this had an entire room practically dedicated to fantasy. And I wanted to explore more there, but it was my husband and I went, so when you go with someone else, even though he was fine in the sports section, when you go with someone else, there's always a little bit like, I can't really like hang out here for hours like I normally would. And it was very warm in there, and there were some families with loud children, which I don't know. I feel the way about a bookstore the same way I feel about a library, like no talking. I'll show you what I got. So this bookstore is called, I'm going to write it there because I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is in South Jersey in this tiny little town. If you happen to be in the area, or even if you're like around the Philadelphia area and you're looking for books, specifically fantasy books, it would be worth a trip. And it's kind of a cool little town, little one-horse town. And they had like I said, the fantasy, and it was extremely well organized. All of the fantasy sections were like by author and also organized thematically. So it was great. And they did have a few, they had like a wall of horror. And one thing that they did have there was a whole section of local horror people. And I really wanted to get in there and dig and pull some out, but I just felt a little rushed with everything. So I do plan to go back there soon and just maybe do it on a weekday when there are no children running around, and I'll wait till the fall when the kiddies go back to school, and I'll go there on a very rainy afternoon, and I'll spend a few hours in there really picking through. Okay, but this is what I got. This is called Red Law by James Lovegrove. I have no idea why I picked this up. Maybe if I take a look, I can refresh my memory why this looked good. I don't know, the cover's very cool. Difficult to put down, a thoroughly entertaining novel that I would recommend to those looking for a summer blockbuster. Okay, this looks like it might be a little like action horror. Policing the damned. They live among us, abhorred, marginalized, despised. They are vampires known politely as the sunless. The job of policing their community falls to the men and women of shade, the sunless housing and disclosure executive, blah, blah, blah. So this looks like a vampire slayer, kind of like Blade Runner of vampires. Sounds pretty good. This looks like a good beach read. So I'm going to save that for my beach vacation that's coming up in September. This one, I'm sure a lot of you guys have read this, but I never have. And that's called Necroscope by Brian Lumley, the modern vampire classic. It's a really nice copy of this. They had the whole series of these books, and see how they've got like a vinyl book cover. All of the books except for like the paperbacks in this store had these covers. Like the store is really clean. The books are really treated well and not expensive. This one was $7. I have a feeling I'm going to love this book, and I've been in kind of a mood for doing a bunch of vampire stuff. So this is going over here. This one is a pretty new hardback. And the reason I was attracted to it, and let me say too that this bookstore had a lot of books like this, like newer kind of horror thriller types that I had never heard of, but that looked really good. This is called Lord of the Dead by Tom Holland, The Secret History of Byron. Okay, this is why I got this, because I love Lord Byron. I was an English major, got a master's degree and all that good stuff. I was obsessed with Byron for years. There's another good book I read, and I can't remember it. I have it somewhere, which is like a fake biography of Byron that I really love. So this looks like right up my alley. So let's take a look at the back. Engaging and sophisticated, Holland embarks on a remarkable literary journey. His subplots recall the early Anne Rice novels. The period detailed with the biographical materials are exquisitely rendered. Vampire fiction gets a transfusion. That's a nice little line. A classical alternative to the traditional tale. I'm sure Byron himself would have been pleased by such an eerie, erudite addition to his myth. This sounds awesome. And it came out in, oh, look. And I didn't even realize it's signed by the author. And it's like in red ink, like blood. I just discovered that opening this. Dear Diane, I do hope you like it. Thanks so much for your support. Best wishes, Tom Holland. I don't know if he has an English accent. I'm just fooling around. This came out in 1995. I wonder who Diane was, and she got rid of the book. I can't wait to read this. This is really weird. I found this in a different thrift store that I visited the same day I visited that one in South Jersey. This one was also in Burlington, New Jersey, which is right across the bridge from where I live. And I've been in there before. It's a really cool, very eccentric, very small little bookstore where the guy, it's almost like, and I probably will do this sometime when I was going to say old. I'm getting there, older, and when I have so many books and I need to get rid of them before I go into the old age home, I'll open up a little bookstore and just sell all my books. That sounds really sad. That sounds like a really sad fantasy. But anyway, this guy has, it's almost like he's selling his own like collection of books because they're all very much the same kind of books from like the 60s, like sort of pulp novels from the 60s, like sci-fi. There's little pocket books that have like really funky covers. And it's weird because I was just thinking about this book. I saw someone had posted it on Instagram and I was like, oh, I remember that book. I had that book. And then I was just talking to my husband about it. I'm like, do you remember those Alfred Hitchcock books with those really cool covers? And he said, yes. And we walked in. I'm like, oh my God, they have it. So I bought this. And I'll do a close-up of the cover. I had a bunch of these as a kid, and they're just so great, and they have these amazing illustrations in them. This is really what got me into horror, is reading these Alfred Hitchcock books. We had a bunch of them at home, and we would get them out of the library as well, and they're illustrated, and they're great, really creepy, awesome illustrations. And this book was $5. And it's in great condition. So I was thrilled to find this. It just makes me feel good when I look at this book. And then last but not least, this is a book I've been wanting for a while, so when I saw it, I jumped at the chance. And this is The Witch's Companion, the official guide to Anne Rice's Lives of the Mayfair Witches. It is the companion encyclopedia. I mean, look how thick this thing is. It just, I really geek out on the Mayfair witches, so I was more than happy to find this, and I will dig in. I'm actually rereading Lasher presently while I'm reading books of my father. I do have Lasher there, and I've read the whole series almost twice. I say almost twice because I just read The Witching Hour again. Yeah, so I love the Mayfair Witches. It's my favorite Anne Rice. I can't get enough. I just wish that somebody would make a television series about that. It's so good. And in the right hands, I think it could be amazing. So that was my haul just recently. And, I can never get too many books, especially the ones that I love. So that's all I have for today. Let me know what you're reading. Have you had any recent hauls? And if you live anywhere near South Jersey, let me know if you are interested in going to this little bookstore. Or maybe you've already been there. I'd love to hear from you. So that's all I have for today. Thanks again for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.